Welcome back, Indy NXT Debrief, as we reflect on Indy NXT's second oval race of the year at Nashville Superspeedway, and yet another eventful oval weekend.
And at the end of it all, it was a 1-2 finish for Cape Motorsports for the first time in their Indy NXT history. And what better way to mark that than to be joined by both of their drivers, race winner Matteo Nannini and runner-up finisher Nikita Johnson.
This is the 9th episode of Indy NXT Debrief this year. We've incredibly had 10 different drivers on the show, almost halfway through the grid, and we've had a new driver on the podcast at every single episode at some point this year. So that's awesome. Long may it continue into the final 3 roundups of the year.
So without further ado, the latest new guest for Indy NXT Debrief, here is Matteo Nannini.
So we're now joined by the race winner at Nashville, Matteo Nannini. Matteo, congratulations, a great victory. Nashville's been about a week off. I hear you're kind of chilling in California, working with your race team. But otherwise, how have things been? And it's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, was a good way to get like a week and a half off, to finish up in Nashville on the top step of the podium, which was a little bit of a surprise because, the previous oval experience wasn't the best. Not that I really did a race at the gateway because we started the race a little bit later than everybody else. But I was confident in the team, especially that they put out of work when they are back home at the shop and try to improve the car from the test day we did there a couple of months back. And yes, it was great to be able to do that, and definitely a good way to get a week off at home.
And this is your second victory of the year. However, it's the first time you've actually won by crossing the line in first place. So kind of just tell us how different this feels to Road America, because Road America, you didn't celebrate the victory in the bird and you kind of found out a few hours after it all finished. So just how does this victory compare, and how nice is it to actually kind of win one properly this year?
It's obviously the proper way to get it done, than having that entitled after some race penalties. And I was even surprised I was able to create quite some big gap towards the end of the race when everybody started messing around with each other. And it was definitely Road America, I think, was a great step forward for us, right? Getting the second / win. But actually securing it in Nashville was more of a statement that we actually more like belong there. It's not just for luck that we found ourselves there. And I feel like we always had the best car, throughout all the other racetracks. It was just a matter of having a clean weekend.
And you mentioned your oval experience is very limited, and it is very, very limited. I kind of feel like this got lost after the weekend. So maybe if you just explain to the people who are watching or listening to this, what sort of oval experience did you have? Because this was essentially your first proper oval race, given what happened at Gateway.
Yeah, because when I did NXT in 2023, I stopped before getting to the oval, part of the season. So I didn't do anything then. Obviously, I don't come from doing USF Pro or USF 2000, so I don't do those type of ovals. So the first time actually testing was at Gateway a couple of months back, and then we raced at Gateway where qualifying didn't go as great, and then the race we had a fuel leak in pit lane, which the team did a great job to fix it, but that cost us 7 laps. So we just got back out there, but I didn't want to take too many risks and damaging the car or stuff like that. So Nashville was the first actual real race. Yeah.
And I guess it shows how quickly you've kind of adapted to ovals. So how have you found that process of adapting to something that's obviously quite different to what you've been used to? And kind of, are there any ways in which have kind of helped you maybe find your comfort level so quickly? Just talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I think oval it's all about having good feeling with the car, trusting the car, right? Being very, especially in Nashville, it's a super speedway. It's all about being very gentle with the steering wheel, your inputs, and because even if you turn a little bit more aggressively, it can really upset and change the setup of the car. I was pretty confident, going into the weekend because the test day we did there was pretty positive as well. Obviously, in practice, I didn't get as much lap times or laps in as I wanted to. But so I was satisfied about, qualifying. Obviously, it was more of a question mark about the race because I didn't do that many laps in a row. But Yeah, I mean, ended up I was pretty much flat out those 65 laps, so it felt pretty good. Yeah.
And obviously, your weekend started off in the perfect way by taking pole position. It's your fastest track of the calendar. You're kind of fully trimmed out at that point all by yourself on track. So, kind of all the sensations of that qualifying run, and kind of how did it feel to take pole? And I guess, was it a bit of a surprise for you?
It was. I definitely was driving a lot more like mad than usual because of what happened earlier on during the day. But and sometimes that helps, to push a little bit more over the limits. And again, it's a track where for the NXT it's pretty easy to get it flat out for those 2 laps in qualifying, so that we start cutting the track, right? So we don't go fully high when we gotta turn in, and on exit we don't go fully wide. So it was just about cutting distance and again being as small as you can with the steering. Don't There is like 3 rules. You need to be flat, you need to don't scrub, and you need to cut the track as long as you don't break rule number 1 and rule number 2. So I was able to get all the 3 rules done. So yeah, I think that's why we were on pole.
Nice. And I guess just take us through the race as well, because obviously the start it was all quite close. You had, I think, Miles got past you for just 1 lap, then you got back past, and then obviously a pretty dominant end to the race. So I guess just talk us through the race, maybe what challenges and ultimately how it really came to you in that kind of last part of it as well.
Yeah, the race it was just about managing the rear tires. So we have the bars we can play with inside the car. So it was all about saving the rear tires as much as possible. I was taking it a little bit easier at the beginning just to get a feel of how the car was going to evolve throughout the next 10, 15 laps. And then when I felt confident that it was pretty standard and degradation wasn't that bad, I kept it pinned for the rest of the race, and the other guys started playing with each other a little bit more, and that gave me the opportunity to break the draft, and then it was just about bringing it home.
And I mean, I guess you had the joy for most of that race of being out front, but obviously racing on ovals is quite different to how you would race on a road course or a street course. So how have you kind of found the actual racecraft elements of ovals from, I guess, the limited amounts that you have experienced? And yeah, what are some of the real key differences to what you've been used to?
What I've seen is that ovals is very different type of racing because it's a very long race and opportunities may come to you. It's not just about creating the opportunity. Uh, Same with when Miles passed me, it was just about having a good exit out of 4, out of 3 and 4, to then be on the outside for 1 and 2. And then obviously for us coming from European racing, it's a lot more risky and scary to a certain level because you also have to rely on the other guy giving you enough room, either if you're on the inside or if you're on the outside. But I definitely my car was meant to be for free air. So as soon as Mile passed me, I knew I had to go around him as quickly as possible. And thankfully, I had that Alpha car length in front. Then the yellow flag came out, so it was again another new restart. But yeah, it's a lot of commitment. Like if you're scared or if there's no brakes, you can't take a single brake or lift a little bit because it's all about momentum and uh, it's kind of crazy, right? But that's what I try to do in the practices. I try to practice, especially in over. It doesn't really shouldn't be about finding the best lap time possible, but more about getting used to running with traffic. So that then even if you qualify top 10 or whatever, there's races are so long that anything can happen.
As you kind of said at the end, you really extended your gap to second and third and beyond that. So kind of when you're out by yourself, you've got no one really chasing you down, you're putting your lead. How do you feel at that point? Is it easy to get distracted by other things? Do you start worrying about kind of what could happen in those scenarios? Just tell us, like, what is the mindset when you're just kind of so far out in front and you're not really racing anybody?
Yeah, towards the last like 4 or 5 laps, it was just about taking it easier, especially on that bump in turn 3 and 4, which usually that one is what cuts all the drivers. Because again, there was not much to risk, and I was hoping not for a yellow flag or safety car to come out, but again, in the oval, I was thinking more than ever about making sure I was turning at the same point with the same smoothness, and yeah, all about that. Playing a little bit with my front bar, just to either if I needed more front grip or if I wanted less front grip. But yeah, not really looking behind. I obviously had a great help from my spotter, right? That was telling me when to move and when to go high, when to run mid track, or when to run low. But yeah, once I had like 8 car lengths, I knew it was gonna take them like a yellow flag or something to catch me again.
And obviously, it was a really special day for all of Cape Motorsports. Obviously, Nikita finished second just behind you. So, can you just tell us a little bit more about kind of the environment of the team? It's obviously a very family-run operation, a pretty small operation compared to what you see from a lot of other teams. So, can you just tell us like what the environment is and how good it is to work at Cape Motorsports to drive for them?
Yeah, definitely a small environment, family team, which has a lot of pros, because definitely they can have a much better look at the cars when it comes down to maintenance the cars between races. And I would say that because it's family owned, it's a lot more result driven, which means that they really want results. Like they are the first one who want to win. Sometimes I'm not saying in NXT, but there might be teams and stuff where they rather have one driver win over the other because of whatever deals there might be behind the scene or sponsors or money involved. But with them, definitely it's all about giving their drivers the best cars possible they have, and they are always working to find new things and how to make the car go faster, and without really asking us to drive better or stuff like that, which is great, right? Because if we can have a little bit of a better car and it's like free lap time, why not? So, and we're fighting against big teams, right? Like HMD or Andretti. They have between 4 to like, at the end of the day, it's like 10 cars, and they have a lot more data than us, a lot of more resources than us. So I think it was a great step forward for them having me and Nikita compared to the last few years where they were, struggling to be in the top 10.
And for people who don't know, you essentially took 2.5 years without racing. So I guess to fill people in on those couple of years, like why did you not race for those 2.5 years? And yeah, what were you up to during that time?
Yeah, this racing is every year becomes worse and worse because it's so much like budget driven, right? Sponsorship, money driven, and there is one real chance in like a million drivers where teams pick one driver and they may help him out and grow with him, but you gotta have some backing. And unfortunately, with me, I throughout the mid of 2023 season, I ran out of it. And you still gotta live somehow, so it's not that you can really spend everything you have on it. So in the meantime, I was just working on finding a way to get back to it. Eventually I took the path of starting a USF 2000 team, because I with the goal to become a bigger team with the next couple of years and expand it. And with the USF 2000 teams, when you talk more like business, and rather than just sponsoring a single driver, you're sponsoring an entire group. It's a little bit easier, and that's what opened up the chance for me to get back in the car. And this was like January of this year, so I made the deal very, very late. And we went to Cape because it was the only car left, and ended up to be great. And I joined Nikita for the 2 days in Miami before St. Pete, and yeah, went straight driving, straight racing.
I guess like why did you want to kind of embark on that project and create the USF 2000 team? Like why was that something that you wanted to do in these couple of years?
Because I feel like I'm young. I have a different mentality than most of the team owners in this. That they're definitely older, a different generation. And because the whole goal we have with the team with Envy Motorsports is not just about being a regular other team that we charge the drivers whatever it takes to race. If you don't have the money, you stay home. But I what I'm trying to do here is to be able to create an environment where us as team owner and team members are able to create enough partnership so that we can give chances to better drivers who are 99% of the cases the one are not racing, right? And it's a little bit the situation where I was in from the get-go, where yes, we raced this year, but we don't know what we're gonna do next year because we don't know if the sponsor is gonna sign another contract or not, right? So and that's why we started the team, and we're based here at Thermal at the Thermal Club, which gives me a plenty of connections and friendship that I developed over the past 3 years that made this happen. To be honest with you guys, and not just for the team, but for myself too, to be back in a NXT seat, and that's what I wanna build on from here.
And I guess kind of how do you balance that ownership role in your team, but kind of keep your own interests in your career and making sure that you're having the most successful season that you can, whether it be in the gym or working with the team, whatever. Kind of how do you balance managing two completely different kind of sides of the motorsport world with the limited time that you have?
Yeah, it's I mean we are just one car operation for now, but we're a bigger team than it looks. I mean, my dad works in the team every day, and then I also have other people involved. So I'm not doing this by myself. When it comes down to the race weekend, I usually do a lot of back and forth because I also help our driver, like a little bit coaching and tips. Especially since I'm racing at the same track at the same time. That's the most valuable information you can get. And we have plans to, as we expand, to add more crews and people. But we so far we got, I would say, maybe it's the best people in business because we have good engineers that have experience in 2000 as far as mechanics, and then as we grow, we'll add more and see how even where I end up next year. So that's gonna change a lot of things, but hopefully, so far it's been great, not too difficult, and we'll see how it is going forward.
And obviously, as Archie mentioned a little bit earlier, you take some time out of Indy next year, obviously returned at the start of this year. So kind of, were there any challenges after being out from the car for such a long period of time? You've kind of seen your results steadily improve across the course of the season. So kind of how has that adaptation been? And as I said, what kind of were the biggest challenges that you maybe faced early on?
Yeah, definitely was the physical side because I haven't really had working out for the past 2 years. Not that not big. I'm not a big fan of going to the gym, but it's very important because I realized that towards the end of the races, my performance was um, I couldn't give my best because I was tired, right? Especially my shoulders, my upper body. So I improved that, and now it's not really an issue no more. And St. Pete was, I mean, kind of a hard weekend because we had a hard hit in qualifying, and then obviously with the way the qualifying format is in NXT, it's very hard to get back out of it. Even when there is two races in the same weekend, if you have something goes bad in qualifying, both the races are screwed. But yeah, definitely we improved with the car and throughout the races, and definitely it's more of the car that I like to drive now than what we started. Because me and Nikita obviously we're very close, lap time wise, but sometimes what I want is not what he wants, and vice versa. So it's just about finding a good baseline to start with. Because both in Nashville and Road America, we were fast from the get-go, and so that was easier, right? To just fine tune both my driving and the car. But if we start that, we are so far off, then it's harder because you don't have that much time to try things.
And I guess coming into this season, like, did you give yourself any expectations, given obviously you hadn't been in Indy Nets for that long in the previous stint, you'd had all this time out, and I guess compared to any expectations you might have had, like, how do you assess how this year has actually ended up going?
I think it's going good. Obviously, it could be always better, right? Especially if you look at my teammate, but considering the things we ran into throughout mid of the season, and I think could have been a lot worse. I obviously going into the championship, my goal was obviously to win, right? And especially having done a few races in 2023. But definitely, it seems like this year the competition is a lot higher too, because gaps are a lot closer. There's 24 drivers, and in within a tenth there might be two or three spots. So it really come down also to putting the lap together in qualifying, because 1/10 or 2/10 can really change your whole weekend. And if you qualify good, then at least for my case, I think most of the race is already done. Just about either fighting to keep the position or moving up a few spots. But I mean, my mentality was always the same one, to go and win. And I was surprised of having such a good car with the Capes, right? Because if you look at the past, it wasn't always as good. But so that was a real positive thing for sure. And having a good teammate helps a lot too.
And I guess now looking ahead to the future, like, are you in a position where you feel like you will be able to kind of keep racing again? And I guess looking to next year, like, are you wanting to return to Indy next? Like, what are the next kind of logical steps for you from a driving side?
Yeah, definitely. When feel like right now I'm in a spot where I can definitely stay in racing again, especially next year or the year after, while I also improve the team, hopefully grow and into the bigger series in 28 and kind of go from there. While I either do the same or I try to step up. We don't know this yet, but um, for now, I'm just focused on. We have 4 races left. Do my best, and another win or whatever I think it's possible will be great. And then kind of have a thought about at the end of the season.
And I guess looking at the team, like, is your long-term vision, would you like to see them in IndyCar? Like, what are your kind of big goals for that?
Yeah, I think that's possible. The long end goal is to have the IndyCar team with the whole paths for like if we have a 15-year-old kid that wants to join us, start with us in 2000 or juniors, and then pro NXT, and then ultimately IndyCar if things allow, sponsor, seats availability and all that stuff. And I think it's very doable, right? We just don't want to burn bridges too quick. So we want to make sure that's why we started in 2000, because we want to first get experience in lower series where it's younger kids with everybody technically not a lot of experience, so it's easier for us to stay up front, and then slowly progress as first we start walking and then we run. So that's kind of the vision we have.
And I guess from your perspective, kind of what is the appeal of not only racing in America, but running your own team in America? Like, you obviously grew up in Europe, had done the majority of your junior career in Europe, and then made its move to America in 2023, obviously have a few years off. So kind of what is the motivation to stay in America and pursue a business career and a driving career there? And kind of what are your ultimate racing goals? Is the dream IndyCar for yourself?
Yeah. I don't think doing what I'm doing it would be as easy in Italy or in Europe. The US definitely gives you a lot of more opportunities, and that's why I decided to came here and kind of took that bet of living there and came here when in 2024 when still I didn't have a clear path, and to stay here and work for 2 years and just to kind of find a path until I found myself in the right spot at the right time, and we were able to kind of get going from there. The goal is definitely, to stay here, make it to the bigger class, and hopefully, do good enough to have a good one of those top teams recognized and go from there. I think I can do it, and especially now that I've been, I did 10 races in NXT or so. So definitely, I got the rust out of myself. So yeah, and I'm not too old quite yet, so yeah.
Matteo, congratulations once again. It's been great to catch up with you. And what would be good news if you get another race victory? You'll be back on the podcast at some point later this year. Well done once again. Hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys.
So there's some great insight there from Matteo about kind of his balance of running a motorsport team, but also racing in Indy next, and some great insight into his Nashville weekend. But we're going to swiftly move on to his teammate, Nikita Johnson, who finished second at Nashville Superspeedway. And stay tuned for a rather interesting celebrity friend. Here's Nikita. So we're now joined by Nikita Johnson, who was runner-up at Nashville Superspeedway. Nikita, great to catch up with you. First time since Barbie, even though you've had a very impressive run of form since then. So just generally how things have been, and congratulations on the result.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it's been a pretty good year, very consistent, just keep on getting points in and, try not to DNF like some others. So, just getting good points every weekend and staying up there.
So we're starting off completely away from anything to do with Indy next. We're going to start off with fishing, and we saw you with Tfue on your Instagram story. So firstly, how have you got to know Tfue out of all people, and how was it like fishing with him?
Yeah, so I mean, he lives pretty near me. He's grown up, I think, in Clearwater, like Reddington Beach, which is like 40 minutes north of me. And then he moved down, I think, a year or two ago, like pretty much 5 minutes away from me. And I've kind of just known him ish, by fishing against him in tournaments, and kind of got to actually, finally meet him when I did the Walker's Cay Wahoo tournament right after St. Pete. Unfortunately, he beat us again. So yeah, I met him there, and then we've just stayed in touch. And he's wanted to come out to race, and I was like, what are you doing this weekend? Let's do something fun. And he's like, oh, planning on going offshore. You want to come? And that's just kind of how it went. We're just like, well, screw it, we'll go offshore. And so we had a pretty good day. It was unfortunately we had a lot of sharks steal our fish, but we still got like 14, 15 fish in the box total. Just big variety of stuff.
Nice. Is fishing tournaments, are they a common thing back home in Florida? Like, are you doing it at a high level? Like, what's the deal there?
Yeah, I mean, quite a bit. I mean, there's a really big one that's in November and I think in April. And I always do the one in November. It's called King of the Beach. And so we have like 500 or 600 boats usually in it. And we try to catch kingfish. And depending on what, you enter, like the high roller or some of the other categories, like not categories, but the total payout, you can win from like probably 70 grand to like 140, depending on just the boats and what pay to be in, right? So that's for sure the big one for us. Got like fourth in single engine last year, so kind of missed out on getting some money, but we'll go back to it this year.
Hey, that amount of money could add to the Indy NXT scholarship prize. That'd be a pretty good little bonus there. How long has your fishing experience been on for? Because you're still pretty young, so you must have started at a pretty early age.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Florida, somebody has a boat, right? And before I got my boat, I was always fishing with my friends by foot, on a bicycle, by boat. So I've been fishing since an early age, right? And I mean, I'm no pro at it, right? Because I don't get to go out a lot with racing, but I still do pretty well. So just today, I just went out with my brother last minute. We actually went over, picked some tune up from Tifu from our fishing. So took the rig over there and then decided to go fish a little bit and caught 2 triple tail, which was pretty good.
Nice. And I also saw you were watching Leeds United, which I'm not pleased about because I'm a Manchester United fan and rivalry there. But I guess what was that experience like? And yeah, how did that come about as well?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. And yeah, I mean, I know it was an exhibition match, but Leeds lost, which kind of sucked.
Nice.
But, I drive like the passenger stuff for Red Bull the past like 2-3 years down in Miami Speedway. And I've just known the Red Bull guys on the production side forever, like the past 5 or 6 years. So they're just like, oh yeah, we're going to be in Tampa. We got an extra ticket to the Leeds game. You want to come out? And I was like, yeah, might as well. I mean, I'm not doing anything right. Get to go see some of my contacts as well and meet a few other people. So yeah, kind of last minute again and just decided, you know what? Why not? You only live once, right? Just go out and go do stuff. So simple as that, I guess.
We'll end the Dive on Fishing podcast to move back on track a little bit onto Indy NXT. Obviously, Nashville was last weekend, a really strong weekend for both yourself and the team, ended up finishing on the podium once again. So kind of just what were your reflections of the weekend, maybe compared to what you expected pre-weekend, to kind of just how pleased you are with the result?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that we were fast at Nashville from the test that we did. I'm pretty comfortable on the ovals. And then, immediately, Matteo and I also gave good feedback in the test and then during the practice. So, I think we both put the car in a good window, and the Cape boys did an excellent job of, making our feedback a reality and making it really good. But also in practice, I was just really comfortable. I mean, I went out there and, was like one of the only ones passing on the high line when it was dirty early on and on old tires. And after that, I knew, this is not going to be easy, but it's going to be easier for me because I'm just so comfortable. And that's one of the keys on ovals. If you can be calm and comfortable, you're going to be really good no matter what. Even if you qualify at the back, if you can run the high lane, you're going to be set.
And obviously, it was a really strong qualifying performance for the team. You lined up in third. So kind of tell us a little bit about that run, about what it took to get that qualifying run absolutely spot on. And yeah, just take us through that.
Yeah, we knew most of the people were going to put wing in because Miles won last year with that. Everybody out front trimmed out a little bit, and he started, I think, 8th or 9th with more wing in it. And so pretty much everybody on the grid decided to put wing in it besides like the top 4. or top 5, and we were basically like, it's better for me to try to qualify on pole and maybe lose 2 or 3 positions than starting outside the top 10 and having to make up, all those positions to get up there. So at the end of the day, we're like, we'll just trim out, and I'll just have to drive the car, right? Almost had pole. I mean, the wind changed a little bit, so I went from like a side wind to a bit of a headwind, which kind of sucked, but I mean, it still got us third, right? So I couldn't complain too much.
And you spoke a bit there about the race before, but I guess just about the nature of oval racing. Like, there are a lot of kind of ebbs and flows in the race. You're up, you're down, you're kind of a bit all over the show, because I guess that's just the nature of it. So I guess just talk us through how you found oval racing. Obviously, we've had a couple now this season, Indy Next. So yeah, just how do you find it? Like, is it something you enjoy? What are some of the big challenges there?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much fun. It's completely different than road racing because you can lose 2 positions, 3 positions, and you can get them back in a lap or 2, right? I mean, you're never out of it, right? And on road course, sometimes if you lose positions, you're kind of stuck there for 10 laps until somebody makes a mistake and whatnot. It's just such a crazy different type of racing, But I mean, I love it. It's really cool to race something where it's never over until it's over, right? I mean, you're always in it until the very end. And the only reason Matteo got away is because we were battling each other a little bit. And the guys ahead of me, were not in his draft when they're battling. So that's the only reason why he broke the toe. But usually you'd be, right in there and fighting till the end.
And talking to Matteo, I feel like you guys have started finding each other on track quite a lot, really, particularly in the second part of the season. So I guess at junior level, where you're working as teammates, you're kind of fighting for yourselves as well. Like, how do you approach racing a teammate compared to maybe how you would race someone who's not a teammate? Like, just talk a bit about the psychology in that sort of situation.
Yeah, I mean, no matter teammate or not, I still race them really hard. Obviously, right now I'm kind of racing him a little bit less because I want to finish the race and get points, right? I mean, last thing you want to do is have a DNF with your teammate when every point matters, right? That just doesn't look good on you. So I'm still battling really hard, same as anybody else. But I'm just just try not to crash your teammate. That's the most important part, right? But I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and it's kind of good that I know he struggled a little bit early on in the year, and I could see that just from not driving an Indy Next forever. I mean, he's driven open wheels in the past time, but it's still really hard to be driving US 50,000 and then go straight to NXT, right? So it's kind of good to have him there now because you can see that we're a little bit kind of the team to beat now the past few weekends, just because I have a teammate now that's right with me, and we're both able to set up the car and kind of improve it, right? So I think with him, kind of getting used to the NXT, getting a little bit faster is just helping us all in the long run.
And let's speak a little bit more kind of about your overall adaptation experience. You've obviously done a few races at Lucas or Raceway, but that's very different to what you experienced at Gateway and Nashville, completely different ends of the oval spectrum. So kind of how have you built comfort as the year went along? I know Gateway was a little bit of a quieter one for you. So kind of just how have you found these first, let's say, proper oval races where you're doing a little bit more of the high line and dealing with traffic and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I found them pretty good. I mean, we just kind of didn't really get the setup at Worldwide. We missed a little bit, so it was kind of a struggle all race. I mean, we were still fast, but we didn't really have too much for the top 3. Like, I might have picked off Taylor before the yellow, and then just kind of got messed up by the momentum with the last yellow. Lockie was, I think, burned his right rear off or something, and kind of checked up to try to get a run because he just couldn't corner, and there's not really many places I could go, so I kind of just had to do the same. And I think it was a Tulio and Coolin, had enough of a gap, right, that they could actually time it and not be right on my rear wing. So I think that race went pretty well. I mean, there wasn't really too much I could have done besides maybe doing a full lift into turn 1 after the yellow and just really trying to space it out. But we kind of learned from that, and then went to Nashville. That's still quite a bit different. You're going flat out instead of lifting. So yeah, I mean, it was just, even though they're closer, they're still pretty far apart just on with the draft games and all that stuff. It's almost like NASCAR racing at Nashville. It's just everybody's in the tow and you're just gonna fly by each other.
And obviously this was a 1-2 for Cape, and I think I spoke to you in the press conference afterwards, and you'd kind of almost hinted at the fact that you prefer in some ways these kind of smaller or underdog type teams. So I guess, like, why is that the case? And compared to maybe some of the bigger teams, like, what do you see as some of the differences that make Cape kind of special as an organization?
Yeah, I mean, the passion that they have for this is unbelievable. It's just crazy, it's kind of all or nothing in a way, and this is what they've done forever, and this is, their family sport. The whole family's in it, right? They all love it. And I think when you deal with a smaller team, sometimes you don't get lost in the communication. It's a little bit easier to talk to each other and kind of find the setup when you only have 2 drivers. But at the same time, it's also hard when you go to a new track like Arlington, where HMD has basically 8 or 9 cars, even though the affiliates, but they still get their data, and they can try a bunch of different setups and get there fast. So it has its pros and cons, but I just think sometimes the big teams kind of get lost in just having kind of too many data points, and every driver is going to be different, right? So they're all going to say the setup was this or that, and most of the time they're not going to say the same thing, right? So it leaves the engineers scratching their head trying to figure out what's the best setup for 4 or 5 drivers.
And I guess from a Cape perspective, there was a big change coming into this year by the fact they've now got that ECR influence within the team. So kind of outside of commercial perspectives, there kind of anything they've added which has kind of helped this performance gain, and also what's kind of the benefits of having these links with an IndyCar team?
Yeah, I mean, they help us with, they go do the sensors on the track to figure out the grip amount, and they do that for every IndyCar team. So we get that data and that report on each track, and then they do some stuff on the car, and they help us with just a few different things. So I think that helps for sure. And then it also helps that there's IndyCar back in NXT, or at least another IndyCar team, so it kind of puts a little bit more spotlight on Matteo and I, just being affiliated with the IndyCar team, especially with the silly season right now. I guess it helps a little bit, just talking points, right?
And you've kind of mentioned the wider season and the consistency that you've had. I mean, your stats are pretty cool. Like, you've obviously finished no worse than 7th. And I think all 7 of your top 5s have been podiums. So some nice little quirks there. But like, how have you approached this season? Like, have you approached it in a particular way that has led to this sort of consistency? Has it been just trying to stay clean all year, or has it kind of evolved as the season's gone on?
Yeah, I mean, I came into it, just driving as always, and I've kind of learned from just over the years, right, that sometimes you don't have to force the issue, right? Just let them make a mistake and you can pass them a lap or 2 later, right? And that's for sure helped me this year, where even some more experienced drivers in the series have tried to force the issue and they crash it, right? Like Enzo at Road America, he tried to force the issue on the start and took his wing off, and there's a few other guys that done that, and I've kind of just figured out that sometimes you just have to kind of relax, let everything kind of work out and see what the driver's doing, and then you can kind of go for it and still try to force the issue, but not make a I wouldn't say dumb move, but just a move that you haven't thought a lot about, right? So I try to be pretty calculated on what I do.
So I guess obviously now you really want to still be in the game when it gets to the doubleheader at Laguna Seca. So looking ahead to the next 2 rounds, obviously Portland and Milwaukee, like, what is your mindset kind of going into them, knowing that kind of a lot can still happen at Laguna, but you still need to be in the game? Like, what's your kind of headspace going into these next couple of rounds specifically?
Yeah, just go try to pick off a few wins. I mean, the car has been getting better and better each weekend. We kind of had a rough patch, I think, like Indy worldwide a little bit, and even Road America. We just couldn't really find the setups in the race, and we struggled a bit. But I think we've communicated good with Matteo and I, and then Dominic and Reggie, and we've kind of figured some things out. And I think we've just been developing the car pretty good on a race car standpoint. So I think, we just need to get a few wins under my belt. There's no really change in, what I'm thinking. Just got to keep pushing, and, if the pass is there, go for it, right? But don't make a, decision that, might come back to bite me.
And I guess with that, naturally, there is more pressure every race you go to as the championship hots up. We've suddenly seen it become a three-way race effectively for the title. So do you kind of enjoy having that pressure on you and having that bigger responsibility and needing to perform better under those circumstances? Does it make you more on edge? Kind of how much do you think about what the others are doing in that kind of championship battle? Tell us a little bit of the kind of the mentality of that.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy the pressure, and I think it's good that we're in a three-way battle. I mean, the series has been the strongest probably almost ever, right? So before, I mean, halfway we probably had the top 6 that were right there together. And we've spaced out a little bit, but I mean, I love the pressure, and I think that the more people that we can have battling for the championship, the better it looks on the series and the drivers, right? Because last year Dennis kind of walked away with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's an extremely good driver, but there's kind of only him and Colette and Lockie, right, that were battling it. And I feel like this year we just have a little bit more depth in the field, and I think for me, I handle it well. I think some of the other guys maybe don't, maybe do. I don't really talk to them, so I'm not too sure, but for me, I know, I'm calm with it. I mean, I'm, much younger than my championship competitors. So for me, I think I've got a lot less pressure than them, to win the championship.
And it's the question we ultimately have to ask. You mentioned earlier, it's silly season. There's a lot of seats up for grabs in IndyCar. So kind of what your current initial plans is, the goal to try and move up to next season if possible. And if so, kind of how much talks are you having with IndyCar teams exploring options for next year?
Yeah, I mean, quite a bit. We're talking to a few teams and have been talking to them for months. So, it's kind of a weird thing because, obviously we come behind IndyCar drivers. So they've kind of have to, figure out if they want an IndyCar driver back and whatnot and where the other guy's going to go and all that. So, we don't really get signed until pretty much the last minute. And we're at the bottom of the food chain in a way. But yeah, the goal is to go win the championship first, take the scholarship money, move up, and try to sign with the team quickly as possible because it just would be nice to be signed and ready to go for next year. But I think talks are going good. If I win the championship, I'll be the youngest to ever win it. So that's for sure a good kind of talking point on my side. And just trying to figure out budget on my end as well. Obviously the scholarship helps. But probably have to find 2 or 3 more sponsors just to get the get a good ride and be able to kind of secure one and not get bought out at the last minute.
So I guess on that point, like how much do you feel like maybe it does hinge on winning the championship? Like how important is the scholarship to you in terms of kind of those ambitions of making a move to IndyCar? Like what's the balance there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in a fortunate position where I could kind of almost get anywhere in the top 3, and I'm so young that I think, most IndyCar teams would pick me because I've got so much less experience than the drivers around me that are fighting for the championship. So I think in that aspect, I mean, it would be good to win, but they're not going to, it's not going to be all or nothing for me on when these IndyCar teams are looking at. But I think what does help is that I think it's 800,000. That for sure helps just kind of chip into the, budget of running the car. Because obviously, most teams are going to want to do a two or 3 year deal. And, my second year would be 2028 when the new car comes out. So these teams are going to have to, put a lot of money into getting the new car, buying all that, buying all the equipment. So I think for sure, if you can bring a little bit, it's going to help you secure a ride just to help offset the team financially.
And I guess if it comes to it, like, do you have a contingency plan? Like, would you accept, like, if it came to it, doing a second year in Indy next? Would you maybe kind of pivot your attention for the year and focus maybe fully on IMSA? Like, do you have kind of a backup plan in mind at the moment?
College. No, I'm joking. But I don't know. We haven't really thought about that yet. I mean, I really don't want to do a second year of Indy next. I think, I've already learned a lot, and there's not really too much more to learn. I'm already, not making rookie mistakes and all that, not crashing people out. So to do a second year almost would be, in my mind, going a step backwards, right? I'd rather do IMSA for a year and probably be a reserve driver. So even if, whatever falls through, I'd probably still try to be a reserve driver for one of the teams. And I think they get an extra day or two just because they have a rookie. So it'll help the team out and help me.
And I guess just to end off, we're going into Portland next time out. It's a track you've had great success at previously in the junior levels. So just tell us a little bit what you're expecting that weekend and kind of how would you feel approaching the weekend?
Yeah, I feel really good. I mean, we've been on a strong roll, and I think all the other drivers and teams see that. So it's pretty good to apply the pressure on my championship rivals and just other drivers in general. I've been really fast at Portland, pretty much every time I've been there. Even from my first time there in 2000, I was like, off pole. I think I was second. So I've always been fast around Portland in any category I've been there in. Picked up a few wins in the pro there, and I think we've got a pretty fast car and those type of circuits. It's almost like a street circuit, but it's still a road course. So I think the car will be there. I think I'll be there, and we just got to put a clean weekend together, get through turn one safely. That's the big thing there, right? So if we can get through turn one safely, I think we can go for the win.
Awesome, Nikita. Appreciate your time once again. Obviously, best luck here on out to the end of the season. Let's hope we'll be chatting to you again soon.
Yep. Thank you guys very much.
So we hope you enjoyed listening to Nikita. It was certainly good to have him back on the show for the first time since Barber, as Dan mentioned at the top of that, and also Matteo as well for the first time. A very, very unique story. Anyhow, we will now get into the action of the weekend in case you missed it. So Dan, kick us off with qualifying this week.
So as always with qualifying, they follow the standard qualifying format that IndyCar uses. 2 laps, they take an average of those 2 laps, and you go in reverse championship order, which means the championship contenders of Johnson, Enzo Fittipaldi and Tim Kahachi are going right at the end as they aim to get a strong starting spot. The championship battle is really heated up, and it's kind of become a 3-horse race at this point between those 3. So all these results really, really do matter. As you heard from, though, it was Nannini who took pole. He had 10 cars who had to go after him as he nervously waited to see them all run, as he secured his second career pole in Indy NXT, obviously his first on an oval and his first this year. Def taxes and Alessandro Tuttulio on the front row after missing out on one of the races at Mid-Ohio. He was firmly back to where he's been pretty much the entirety of the season, back on the front row in second place like he was at Gateway. The good qualifying for Cape continued with Johnson in third, and the pre-race favourite Mars Rowe was in fourth. He was obviously expected to have a superb weekend given what he had done at Gateway. Chip Ganassi Racing's Niels Coulin lined up in 5th alongside Able Motorsports' Max Garcia in 6th. It was a good qualifying session for Able Motorsports with Colin Kaminsky in 7th. As well as Chip Ganassi Racing, as Bryce Aaron was at 8th. Lockie Hughes, who was on the pole at Gateway, could only manage 9th here in Nashville, with Jack Beaton of HMD Motorsports down in 10th. A difficult day for 2 of the main 3 championship contenders. Johnson, as we said, qualified in 3rd, but Fittipaldi could only manage 14th. It was even worse for his teammate Kaharchik, who was all the way down in 17th and had a lot of work to do going into Sunday's race if he wanted to keep his championship hopes alive. Archie, take us through the action during the race.
Yes, indeed. It was an excellent start to the race for Cape as Nannini held on to his lead and Johnson immediately pretty much jumped up to second, and the pair of them had it out for a few laps, you could say. There was also early progress for Rowe, who made his way past Tuttulio pretty immediately after a few laps of battling and up into the podium positions. The first real tale of woe of the race came for Ganassi, who lost Niels Coulin and Carson-Etta to the pit lane pretty early on, although Bryce Aaron did make a good start to the race to climb up to 5th, so a bit of a consolation there for Ganassi after a tough start to the race. A first caution came out pretty early on lap 6 for a heavy crash between the Able Motorsport and Cusick Morgan Motorsports cars of Jordan Missick and JM Correa. Missick got a bit loose in turn 4 and Correa couldn't really do anything to avoid the car sliding up the track, and both of them basically collided at the same time that they hit the wall. So a heavy accident. They'd both been running outside the top 15 in those early stages and both emerged from their cars okay. The battle between the Cape drivers continued out front on the restart. Nannini managed to stay ahead, though Rowe made a pretty audacious dive down the inside of both of the leading 2 drivers to take the lead, although it proved to be only very brief as Nannini got him back on the next lap, and it actually proved the only non-Nannini-led lap of the entire race. Once the race had restarted and was back into a bit of a rhythm, there was a big moment for the championship on lap 23 as Kaharchik limped down pit lane with front wing damage, and it would transpire pretty soon after that it had come after he ran into the rear of his teammate and title rival Fittipaldi after attempting to make what appeared to be a bit of a late pop out from behind him, and misjudged it, got damage, fell 3 laps down, so pretty detrimental there for Kaharchik. The battle for the podium places intensified as the race neared its midpoint. Hughes entered the equation for Andretti as he passed Rowe for third, and the pair then did make a little bit of contact, but it was a scare that both emerged unscathed from. Hughes continued to charge forward, actually, from that point. He dispatched of Johnson for second, and for a good 10 laps or so, actually worked on Nannini, but all the while behind the ominous sight of Rowe climbing his way back up onto the podium and rather charging, and ultimately it did prove that Hughes's quest for the lead ultimately came to no avail. That pressure dissipated, and he actually ended up falling off the podium. The scrap that was ensuing for the final two steps on the podium was a dream for Nannini out front. He was able to surge free of any real duress and ultimately take the checkered flag to win the race by over 5.5 seconds, which was the second biggest win margin of the year after Fittipaldi the race prior at Mid-Ohio winning by over 12 seconds there. Incredibly, as we did discuss with Matteo earlier in this episode, this was the first oval race in which he has ever taken the start. So a pretty wild story that I don't think enough was actually made of at the time of the race, and an incredible effort from him. Just behind him, Johnson had got Rowe back for second place in the closing exchanges, which confirmed a first 1-2 finish, as I mentioned at the very top of this episode, for Cape Motorsports in their history in Indy NXT after making the step back up to this level in 2023. Rowe ended up finishing the race in third with his teammate Garcia in fourth, actually for the third time this season. So he is very much knocking on the door of a podium, the reigning USF Pro 2000 champion. Taylor recovered to fifth place. He had quite a big moment actually early in the race and fell towards the back of the pack. So another good drive through the field, proving his racecraft to any possible future suitors. And the top 10 then was rounded out by Pearson, Hughes falling down to seventh, Beaton, DeTulio, and Aaron. Fittipaldi could only salvage 11th from his starting spot of 14th in a little bit of a dent to his championship hopes, albeit Dan will discuss in a moment that he is very much still in the picture, but Kuharczyk with a bit more of a blow as he trundled around to finish only 18th. And as I say, Dan, this has championship implications.
As you say, Archie, the championship picture changed around completely. It looked like following Mid-Ohio that Fittipaldi had a little bit of a comfortable gap to play with, but that's been turned around very suddenly after his difficult result in Nashville, and a great weekend for Johnson moves him back at the top of the championship standings. But the gap now stands at just 1 point between him and Fittipaldi with just 4 races to go. So very, very tight as it has been all season. That championship battle has really ebbed and flowed the entire year, and it continues to do so. A difficult weekend for Kuharczyk puts him a little bit further behind, but is certainly in the picture. 24 points behind Fittipaldi and 25 behind Johnson. After that, there is a big gap to Matt Taylor in fourth, so we can kind of safely assume that he's not in the championship picture now. It's going to be Johnson, Fittipaldi, and Kuharczyk who will be battling for the championship in the final 4 races of the year. Taylor is 90 points behind Johnson, so he's effectively 2 race victories behind, and with 4 races left, it would be quite the comeback if he was to pull that off. So that battle for fourth could become quite interesting, though. Hughes is just 6. But that's it for our Nashville review. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. 16 points behind his teammate, with Rowe a further 9 points behind Hughes, so they're covered by just 25 points as the top 3 are in the championship. DeTulio is still within a shout. He's a further 12 points back in 7th in the championship. He is 127 off the championship lead, which is quite remarkable. Then there's another 25-point gap to Beaton in 8th, and Nannini's victory moves him up to 9th in the standings after dropping outside the top 10. He's just 2 points behind Beaton. Josh Pearson now rounds out your top 10, 15 points behind Nannini. So that's it for our Nashville review. Obviously, great to hear from both Cape Motorsports drivers on a very successful weekend for the team. The series hits Portland next time out for a single header. It's the only road course race in a single header this season. Of note in Portland, Nolan Alla will be returning to the 75 Hyncross car that was absent last time out at Nashville. Remains to be seen if they put anyone in from Milwaukee, but Alla will be doing the race at Portland and Laguna Seca. But that's it for our Nashville review. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.